Welcome back to the School of Calisthenics. It's Tim and Jacko, and today we're looking at another handstand lesson. Now, you can learn the handstand by kicking up. That's one way of doing it, but we've got something different for you today.
Some people say different, Dave. Others think it's better. But I've got some science to back that up, so I'm going to share that with you. So here's the rationale as to why I think this is maybe a better option when you learn to handstand. A lot of people use a kick up, but hands on the floor, they kick up with a long straight body, so the feet are going directly overhead with the legs straight. The problem with that is there's a load of variables that you've got to try and manage. What's happening with the hands, through the shoulders, the core, the feet, there's loads of different things. Let's call it a tsunami of neural information which your brain is trying to process, and that's like difficult when you're learning. I thought that would tickle your fancy. So my approach on this is actually, like when we're using training methods for the back lever, human flag, we shorten the lever. We make it a little bit easier by making the body shorter. We've got less force to worry about. We've also got less lever length to have to worry about controlling. So if we can work into a handstand from a tuck position, a tuck handstand, let's call it, it makes it easier for us to create a stable foundation from which we can then extend the legs. So we're going to go into a seated position, and then we're going to start to think about finishing the movement by extending the legs out and controlling the tsunami somewhat.
So one sort of thing at a time. The other thing that's a little bit different about this is that we're starting with straight arms, and those that have been on the sort of frog stand to handstand journey with us over quite a while will know that that takes a bit of time to build up that strength to push out. This is going to accelerate your learning and speed of how you actually get up to the top and be able to hold it, which is important because later in 2018 we've got the handstand world record. If you haven't heard about that, where have you been? We're going to try and break the handstand world record for the most number of people doing a handstand. There's details of that, you can click, there'll be information about that below. We're going to get you up into that handstand quickly. We've got Tim's got some rationale about why we're going to do it this way. You don't need to build as much strength to press out from that frog stand, so we're all going to get there a little bit quicker and become world record holders together. So let's get into today's lesson.
So when we're teaching the handstand, we like to take an approach where we look at the bottom up and the top down. Those two things enable us to start to develop the skills in isolation, and then our job further down the line when we get a bit more competent is to link those two things together. It's really the same process as any skill. If you were learning to do an Olympic lift, we would break that down into some individual components and then we would piece it together. So it's just a simple skill acquisition process which makes it a bit easier. With the handstand, the first step with us we're going to look at today is the bottom up, and that just means getting the hands on the ground.
Yeah, so we're going to be balancing on the ground, just like those that have done a frog stand. Lots of you have started that journey, but today we're going to look at trying to start with that straight arm position. So we're going to take out the need to press out from that frog, as we said in the intro. So Tim's going to be, this is what in the yoga industry they would talk about a crow stand or a crane, where the arm is straight, so the elbow is straight. The knees now need to go up higher above the back of your elbow or onto the tricep, and Tim's going to start to go up onto his tiptoes and just lean forward. The big feeling you're going to notice is that your hip is going to be a lot higher than when it is in your frog stand. So it's going to be harder a little bit on a couple of things. The front of your shoulder now is going to have to take a little bit more strain and stress to keep that arm in a straight position. So people talk about straight arm strength, being able to be strong through that chain with those arms straight. And then if Tim just goes this again, just to pay attention to what's happening at the wrist. The forearm and arm in that straight position is going to be going past vertical, so it's actually going to require a little bit more wrist mobility, and so you're going to probably feel a little bit of that around the front of there. Those that do, if you've got experienced any pain or anything like that, you can work on your mobility. We've got a video for that which covers wrist, elbow and shoulder niggles and mobility for that, as well as like wrist straps can sometimes help to support in that position. So one of the things that's difficult in this position is being able to keep that elbow locked out and straight, because what's going to want to happen when you're not strong enough is the elbows are going to want to bend and you're going to collapse down in the middle. But do not fear, we're going to go into the School of Calisthenics locker and grab one of the tools to help us with that. So I've been in, and anyone that follows Tim will know it's got a little boy, and we've gone in and he loves these little blocks to play with. So we've
just borrowed them over, Dave. That's what you smash them all over.
They're not yoga blocks. These are you don't have to steal these off your kid, but that could be just some books or anything, or a few pillows stacked up, anything. What's important is that the height of it. So that Tim can rest his head on there whilst working on this position. Nice straight elbows that you can see there, hip nice and high, knees on top above, on the triceps above the elbow. And so what's happening there is he's got a bit of extra support, so it's providing some assistance in terms of the strength demand is reduced, but it's also another point of contact with the floor, which is giving him some stability. So So option 1 is in front, then option 2 is sticking them behind, and then they can go, your toes can rest on them. Okay, important thing is the position of these when your toes are on them, and like Tim shows, you can try and take one toe off, you can take the other off. What's just important is when you're using them on your toes that you don't rock backwards and take yourself just resting all of your weight on your feet. So still the same position, nice forward lean into it, shoulders are forward of the wrists, and then you're not relying on the block, you're just using it a tiny bit to help you get some strength in that position.
One thing I really like about this variation over the frog stand is you can't really hide in it. So in a frog stand, it's quite easy to support your weight, you can relax and hang out. The real key with the crow stand is you've got to keep pushing down because you have to keep the elbows straight. So that's a real key message for our handstand. That throughout, when we're doing freestanding, we have to keep pushing the floor down. So this integrates really good practice right from the start.
Yeah, and then just in terms of how long do you want to hold these for, use one of those progressions or variations, 5 to 10 seconds, 4 to 6 sets, and start building up until you can do it completely freestanding, like header handstands, Tim Stevenson.
So we've had a look at the bottom up, we're now going to start to look at the top down, but we're going to meet somewhere in the middle with this tuck up position because we're going to still maintain that short knees and hips bent shape. So Jacko's going to put his hands on the floor, we're going to keep the arms straight just like we did in the crow stand, and the job is he's just going to bunny hop off his back toes here. So he's going to start to get those hips going progressively higher until he has the confidence to kick hard enough that his hips hit the wall. The wall's not going to move, so you've got the confidence to go for that one, and then you can start to just practice getting into that kick up. Now, the challenge here comes when we can start to get a really good opportunity to build some strength, but it's not easy. But if he can start to think about pushing his hips up onto the wall and really controlling that movement, the thing to think about is, can you pull your hips onto the wall using the strength up here in the back of the shoulders? So the first option is just kick up and hit the wall. The second one is pull yourself up. If you find those difficult, we can use an eccentric tool where Jacko can kick himself up and then he can start to try and lower down as slowly as he can, and that's really going to start to challenge the balance but also the shoulder strength. You can see done beautifully. That's going to pack a load of strength in here, and when we go into a freestanding position, that's going to mean you've got some control options about where you're positioning your hips over your base of support and ultimately to allow the balance. Sometimes people find it difficult to get the rotation and get high enough so the hips can hit the wall. Could be a little bit of leg power, you're not kicking hard enough from the feet, but a big one is having the confidence to open the shoulder up to get the arms fully overhead, and you have to look underneath you and behind you. If you do that, you're really going to see those hips rotate higher and you create that nice position against the wall.
So I hope that's given you some ideas to go away and work on. One of the beauties of these is that you can do all these things for a handstand at home. Take-home messages for the crow stand in particular, that we're building some specific strength in that straight arm position. Choose one of the progressions or regressions that we've shown you with a block or without a block, on the feet or on the head. But work somewhere where you can hold for 5 to 10 seconds, 4 to 6 sets. It's just really important that you build up enough time and attention to build up that specific strength so you can come and become a world record holder with us later this year.
In which you actually need to keep the arm straight, so it's a super important thing to be able to work on, focusing on keeping the arm nice and strong. The second one, guys, the wall tuck up. Have a play around with that, get comfortable getting the hips stacked up over the shoulders. That's what we need to do to create that first stable foundation. If you can nail that down, then it's an easy job, pretty much, of straightening the legs out overhead. But think about pulling the hips onto the wall, using that deceleration movement, the eccentric, to build some strength. If you can do that, then you've got some real movement options, and then that's going to lead to a very stable and robust handstand.
Yeah, if you feel like you need a little bit more help, a little bit more detailed program to follow, we've just brought out a new handstand guide for beginners that has a step-by-step, week-by-week guide of how to do that, all with video tutorials, of course. That's in the description below, so check that out. And if you haven't yet got involved and started to think about learning to do a handstand in 2018 for our handstand world record, you need to start putting that on your list of goals or resolutions to do for 2018. But until next week, class dismissed.